So yeah, you were saying that this is for blue collar people and holistic wellness, and you're right in the middle of those two?
Yeah, I've been really looking forward to having this conversation with you. When I was speaking with, our friend Rachel Harper the other week about this, and she kind of mentioned it, and I started talking to you, and I was like, how fortuitous, how serendipitous that I am like involved in both of these things. Like one of these I do for a living, the other is more like on the side, but it encompasses like I don't know, everything I do with my life. So yeah, I'm excited to, I don't know, share anything you want to know about. So let's dig in.
Yeah, thank you. I just realized your last name is different, like in my brain
It
and in my
is.
phone.
It is. I am a keener now. So
Well,
yeah,
let's see.
actually coming up on our second wedding anniversary here in a couple weeks. So that's exciting.
Congrats.
Thanks.
Well, welcome to Built to Thrive. Today we have Katie Keener, not Katie Worley. Um, Katie, you and I have known each other from On Track Yoga. We've
Yes.
probably known each other for like 7 years or something like
At
that.
least. Yeah. 7 or 8,
Yeah.
I'd say. Yeah. It's been a minute.
Yeah. And back then, I think Rachel and I were both at Joyful Belly going through Ayurveda school. And I know you were getting really interested in herbalism. But when I was talking with Rachel for the last episode, she mentioned that you're a welder now,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is like, I was like, oh my God, I have to interview her because I figured you're still into holistic medicine. So
Definitely. Yeah. So the herbalism aspect, I've been doing that for about 4 years now. Uh, and I think with anyone who is involved with any kind of holistic anything, there's like massive imposter syndrome surrounding all of it. I always feel like I know nothing. I know absolutely nothing. And people are like, you're talking about like roots and berries and how they'll fix your life. Like, that's amazing. And obviously, a gross oversimplification of things. So I dug into that about 4 years ago. It was really kind of beautiful timing the way that it entered my life, actually. I got a random suggestion on Spotify for a particular podcast. I was like, "Oh, that sounds interesting." And it was in the fall of 2020. And I pick up this podcast that's got something to do with kind of like going through grief and kind of the death and dying at the end of the year. We're looking into autumn, things are slowing down, things are kind of going in that direction. And so it was this really beautiful conversation. And they start talking about, certain plants that can kind of help us deal with grief. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. What I didn't know is that I was about to walk into a point in my life where I was dealing with the most grief I've ever dealt with in my life. Shortly after that, my grandmother passed, and that's sad, but it's a part of life. It was a not an untimely death, I guess we'll say. But then 5 months after that, my brother unexpectedly passed away. He was 34 at the time, uh, and so I just didn't realize this beautiful thing that had really landed in my lap. I got sober around that time after my brother passed away, and I started leaning like really heavy into herbalism and just really like delving into that. And like, it sounds kind of funny to say it this way, but the relationships that I've made with the plants along the way, and like, they've become such good friends in my life. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. One of the coolest things that I tell people, it's not really cool. It was just really serendipitous at the time. I do this thing every once in a while called like an herb of the week or an herb of the month. And it's just like a good way to get to know the plants and start to understand them, how they feel in your body. You can read about things all you want, but you're not going to understand it until you actually start working with the plant itself. So I was very new into this and I was like, chamomile. Chamomile's everywhere. Let's just start with chamomile and see how that works. So I'd had like some tea and I'd done a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And you always want to try and get it like in as many forms as you can too. So I had ordered a tincture. And if anybody's not familiar with tinctures, that is typically like an alcohol extract of the herb. They can be done in glycerates if you definitely can't do alcohol. But anywho, I'd ordered this thing and I'd forgotten all about it. And it's literally the day of my brother's service. And my now husband, he opens the front door. He says, "You've got a package here." I was like, huh? And I go, and lo and behold, there's my very first ever Mountain Rose Herbs package with my chamomile tincture. And I was like, this is really interesting timing. And I took that with me. And I don't know. It was somehow just like after just getting that into my system, I was like, I feel like I can do this actually. I mean, of course, it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but just having that literally show up on my doorstep on that day is some magic I will never forget in my life. It's really beautiful. So then to pivot a little bit to the other side of things. So my husband, Mark Keener, and we run a business called Mark's Metals, and it's a fabrication business. And we weld and fabricate typically like industrial handrails. That's kind of the side of business that we are on. He was in this line of business for about 10 years with the company, and he had just done everything from the ground up, everything from like cutting material all the way up through estimating. And he decided, hey, I think this is something I want to try for myself. So he jumped ship and started his own thing and was like, hey girl, you want to come you want to come help out and see how it goes? And so we've been doing that for a few years now, and it's just awesome. It's just me and him. We work from our home. We have a shop here on our property, and so we're here every day doing the thing, and it's a lot of fun. I never obviously in a million years saw myself doing anything like this, but yeah, it's really cool. I've said a lot, so I'm gonna pause for a beat and let you jump in.
Well, I also realized that I didn't give you the opportunity to introduce yourself, but I feel like that was really good.
That'll work.
Yeah. Wow. That is a lot of information. I've got a lot of questions.
Sorry, I just kinda like
No, no, no.
blurted.
I'm just thinking like where do we go from now? So how long did you work with chamomile once you started?
Uh, I haven't stopped. I work with chamomile, like, all the time. It's still one of my closest allies and best friends. I've jokingly said I've been in, like, a love affair with chamomile for, like, many years now. It's an easy one to go to, and I love recommending it to people because it's so unassuming, right? Because it's everywhere. It's very ubiquitous. Like you can get it in restaurants as an after dinner tea. It's on the shelves everywhere. Like everyone's heard of chamomile. This is not some secret herb on like the Alps somewhere that you have to journey far to get to. But the beauty of it is that it's just such a systemic thing. It can do so many things for the body, and yeah, just a lot of superpowers in there. I love it for when I'm getting a little too anxious and the energy's a little too high and you just kind of need to come back down to earth. Absolutely wonderful for that. So yeah,
I remember
trying
we
that
were
one a
at a
lot.
yoga class and afterwards you were talking with me about chamomile and I'm drinking like a quart of chamomile tea a day.
Yeah.
And I you were like, I don't have to drink coffee anymore and like my digestion is so much better drinking this chamomile
Yes.
tea. And I
It's
had
been a
never
while.
really thought of it for that.
Yeah, that's a side of it that a lot of people don't think about. I'm feeling re-inspired to do my quart a day of chamomile now. But yeah, like you mentioned for the digestion, like who thinks of chamomile for that? I mean, that's one of those you're gonna want to steep it a little longer than like your 2 to 3 minutes that it says on your one bag that you may put in one cup. I like to do just a ton of it. You make it as dark and as bitter as possible, and it's fantastic for your digestion. I know you and Rachel had a really nice conversation, kind of like in the Ayurvedic lens and perspective about a lot of these things too. And I don't know, I was just so excited to talk about all of this because like herbalism and Ayurveda, they just go hand in hand. Like they have so many overlapping things. Like it's really beautiful. Yeah.
Are you so with your, I guess, like herbalism journey, have you taken any courses or are you mainly just it's on your own study?
Yeah, I definitely take courses. The school that I go to is called Commonwealth Herbs. They are actually located in Boston, Massachusetts, but they do all of their stuff online as well. And I'll just you know, promote that here for just a minute. Obviously, I'm not paid to say anything like that. It's really neat. Like, if you want to get your toes in the water, first of all, they have a whole podcast, the Holistic Herbalism podcast. That's how I got introduced to this. I love it. They have little miniature courses for like, $10. So that's kind of how I got started. It's like, okay, let me just test this out, see if I like it. And so yeah, and it's also like self-paced, thank God, because I'm so ADD. It's like, for a couple months, I'll be on it. I'm like, yes, I am going to learn the herbalism and do all the things. And then for another 3 months, I'm like, I'm just going to do other things with my life for now, which is fine. Like, it works
That's
for me.
yeah.
I'm just doing it for myself. So, yeah.
I I joined Joyful Belly's herbalism course a couple of years ago, and, like,
Mm,
I had a couple of really I just joined it at a bad time for my job, and now I'm like, "Okay, this is the year where I'm gonna stick to it," and I have, like, written on a Post-it note on my wall, I'm like, "No more commitments." I have, like, my job, my business, this herbalism course, like, no more commitments until this class is over,
proud of you.
and
That's good boundaries right there.
thank you. Well, I guess I'd like to hear about what you did professionally before you got into the business with your husband, and then what the transition's been like, and, like, let's just start there.
Great. Okay. So before I started working with my husband, I was working at a desk job. I loved that place. It was a place called Martin's Sprocket and Gear. Those people are still very near and dear to my heart. Go and check in on them a couple times a year. So I did the desk job gig for between that and another place, like 10 years, which is fine. And then I stepped away from that to embark on this journey with my husband into the world of self-employment, which, of course, at times can be scary, but it is what it is. You have to take a leap of faith sometimes. But, obviously the biggest difference, first of all, was just the amount of physical movement that came back into my life. It was like right out the gate after I left that job, I think I dropped like 10 pounds just from like not being at the desk anymore and just like being up and moving, and like the nature of the job itself. You're lifting heavy material and you're moving it around, and you're just on your feet all day long. So that was a big adjustment, but in a good way. It just felt very refreshing to be like active again in my life. And so a couple things, like I'm going to kind of like weave a couple things into here between like the old job, the new job, and kind of like the herbalism thing. Cuz like I think a lot of people, what they may not understand about herbalism is they're going to think like, "Oh, it's about the plants." But like really what we do is so much more before we even talk about plants, right? Like there are other things that we need to kind of think about in our bodies and our lifestyles to help bring us to a better point of health. Like, I don't want to use the word balance because I feel like that gets really overused and that's not really something you can achieve, right? Like it's something we're all constantly chasing. Like it's fluid. It's not a thing you grab and you're like, aha, I got it. I found the balance. Like, no, it changes every day. But so with this line of work that we do, we're always kind of trying to keep in mind like a few different pillars of health is how we kind of like to think of it. So like the food that you're eating, your nourishment, your movement outside of work, the sleep that you're getting, that's a big one, and stress. Like, how are you dealing with stress? And we just kind of like always go around these four concepts and take a look at what's out of balance and see, out of balance and
Yeah.
try and work on that a bit and then go from there and just kind of keep working around the circle with that. And that tends to work really well for us. I like that methodology.
Just constantly recalibrating.
Absolutely. Absolutely, you have to. It's necessary every single day. Yeah. Lately, for me, it's definitely been about stress. We were chatting a little bit before we started this recording about how we're kind of moving into the fall and Ayurveda. It's more like the Vata season, it's the dry season. And I don't know, typically, like for me, this time of year, I definitely get pretty out of whack mentally. Just a little drier up here. Like my thoughts are just kind of blowing around in the wind. And I'm like, where am I? What am I doing? So just kind of working on that stress and grounding and just bringing everything back down. I hope I answered everything you just asked. I probably said
Yeah,
more
yeah.
than you needed.
Well, and what you're talking about is, like, I feel like during the fall, there's this inspiration for new projects, right? Like,
Mm,
the not only has the kind of, like, heavy fog of I mean, for us in the Southeast, like, the humidity, the
it's
heat,
oppressive,
it's like you're like it's like you're wading through hot water every time you go outside.
disgusting. Yeah.
And, in early fall, it's still warm, but there's this movement in the air and, like, there's this inspiration that comes to you. But if you try to take on too many new projects or, like, you don't take time to ground yourself and make sure that all of the kind of essentials are on point, then that's when you're going to get sick or,
Burn
start to
out.
feel really yeah, feel really scattered. I mean, that's what happened to me getting sick this week. I think it was I haven't really been getting sick in a long time,
Mm.
And it happening this week was kind of a wake-up call of like, "Okay, maybe I'm doing too much."
Yeah, seriously, I feel that. I feel that definitely with the overcommitment to things. I've been doing a little too much lately myself. But yeah, so back to the work side of things. I guess another interesting thing to think about, we were talking a little bit before too, before we started the recording about yoga and our background with that. So that's another huge part of my life. It's a huge part of your life. And it's something that's actually really been so super vital to what I do for a living. You kind of read all the time about like blue collar people just kind of fussing and complaining about like, oh wow, this kind of work is gonna like ruin your body for the years. And
Yeah,
I'm just like, it does not have to be that way, friends. Like it really does not. And so having the yoga background, first and foremost, like when we're lifting really heavy things, and when I say really heavy things, I mean it. Like we built a rail. We built a rail last week or 2 weeks ago that ended up weighing about 800 pounds. Like no joke, it's very heavy stuff. Obviously, two people can't lift that on their own, but you're carrying the pieces to build it into one big thing. So, anyways, all that to say, having body awareness around this stuff, right? Like when you're lifting, embracing your core and like keeping your tailbone kind of tucked and things like that. Like I'm following all these cues that we talk about all the time in yoga, belly button to spine, tuck your tailbone, all this stuff. And it really makes it so much easier to do these things. So having that kind of body awareness, but then also like in terms of body awareness and just kind of taking care of the body, like certain things that we do to kind of help ourselves. For example, like I'm really adamant about working with collagen on a really regular basis just to kind of like keep my joints like nice and lubricated. Omega 3s are like a daily part of my routine as well. So you just kind of have to be mindful and think about these things. Just if there's one thing I could say to folks who are like in this line of work, it's like you really, really must consider the things that you are putting into your body and the output that you're doing as well. Like, I know this job is so physical and it can be so demanding, but it's also so vital and important to like exercise your body outside of this too. And it seems so counterintuitive, but it's like, it's really amazing the energy that it will give you to perform your job better. Uh, and I don't want to sound like a proponent for like maximize what you can do for capitalism kind of thing, but more so just like maximize what you can do for yourself, right? Like, I
right.
don't know. I hope that made sense.
No, it totally makes sense. Can you talk a little bit about, like, if you run into people other people that are welders or, like, when you talk with someone and then you find that common ground of, like, we are both doing blue collar work.
Mhm.
What does that conversation ever come up about, your health? And is there like, what is that conversation normally like when it comes to mentioning health or wellness or physical activity or the breakdown of things over time?
Let me think about this for a second so I can give you a good answer. Typically, when I'm running into people who do this line of work, it's people that my husband knows, right? It's people that he's known in the industry for some time. And I think a lot of the times initially when I'm meeting people, it's a little more that shock factor. They're like, "But you do this?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do. I am a woman and I do this." So I wouldn't say that we typically get to have a conversation too often about like what I would love to talk about with that side of things. It's usually more of like a shock factor of like, "Hey lady, look at you doing the thing." I'm like, "Yes, I am. That's very cool."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a conversation I'd love to be able to have more with folks. Honestly, the people who I probably get to talk to the most about stuff like this are the few men who do come to the yoga studio.
Yeah.
There aren't a whole lot, but when they do, I'm thinking of like, do you remember Steve and then Scott? You remember those two guys?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, and they're always joking about like the achy joints and the stuff like this, but like they're there and they're doing the thing and it's like good on you. Like, please tell your friends, like it's so good for you.
Those
So
guys that come to the yoga studio, they're so, like, valued because 'cause they're
yes,
so
they
far
are.
and in between.
With chair.
Last year, I joined an organization called NAWIC, so it's, National Association of Women in Construction, right? Yeah, and I joined as an associate member because I'm a health coach for women in construction, right? And I realized that, like, every time I introduce myself at these meetings, I'll say, "I do health coaching for women in construction." And I hear the whole room go, "Ooh," right? But I think
Got our
that
attention.
yeah, and then I start talking with people and they're very afraid. Like, people are afraid to talk about their digestion, afraid to they're just kinda hesitant to dig into it. So, I know that, like, this vision that I have for kind of transforming the blue collar trades in terms of, like, how we think about our health and thinking of it as, like, being a chore rather than it just being integrated into our lives. I know that there's something to it, but I think that when I joined that organization, for example, I don't think that I was comfortable speaking from a place of authority. And it's also
Yeah.
kinda strange because it's like, okay, I'm not just a health coach, I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, and I went to a college for this. I have a certification. I've been doing it for
You've got
years.
the credentials.
I do have the credentials, and I think that, I was kind of, like, not selling myself short, but I was afraid of embodying that authority because it's strange for people, but I think that or uncomfortable, but that is just like with a yoga class, where when you're teaching a yoga class, everyone has these uncomfortable looks on their faces every time you cue something. The discomfort and what's going on, it all has to do with them and the experience they're having in the class. It's not that I cued it incorrectly or something.
Right.
It's the same thing with, like, my presence as a practitioner. Like, someone feeling hesitant or uncomfortable, it doesn't have anything to do with me, and I'm not imposing on anyone. I feel like we're getting a little off track because this is an interview for you,
No.
but
No, this is this is really important stuff, and, like, I want to hear this also.
thank you.
What you're doing is really amazing, and it's really important, and, like, yeah, I don't know, I really value this, and I think what you're doing is just fantastic. I think there's a whole world of people, yeah, who needs to be, like, well, they don't need to, but it'd be cool if they could be reached about stuff
Yeah.
like this. I think, you and Rachel were kinda having this conversation too, where with the stuff that we do with holistic living or whatever, and this may be like another reason why I haven't had this conversation too much with other people is because we're always kind of walking that line, right? Where it's like, I may see that someone could use a few tips about something, but is that any of my business to share with them? Probably not. And when you're in the beginning of all this, you're so excited and you're so just like gung ho to share this with anybody and everybody who will listen. You're like, let me tell you about chamomile and digestion and like all this stuff. It's so wonderful. But then
Yeah.
you get a couple years into it and you're like, not everybody wants to hear about that. Not everybody wants to talk about this kind of stuff. So you just have to proceed with caution, I suppose. I don't know. I don't want to make it sound like be
Well,
hesitant, but you have to know your audience, I guess is a better way of saying.
at my old job, so I've done the same role a couple of times now, which is basically creating uh, and organizing logistics and construction companies. And there's a lot of things where I've talked with certain colleagues and we've come to this realization of like, if I present this to somebody before they're ready to hear it, I'm the asshole, right? But
Yep,
if it's right at the right time or if something happens and they feel it evokes a question from them. That's my time, that's my permission. But at the same time, as a practitioner, the only way I can reach these people is by just presenting myself as an authority
yep,
because it is legitimate authority. And so I guess that's kind of the line that I'm trying to walk because there's also so many egos in just the blue collar world where
for
it's like,
sure.
yeah, it's so you don't want to question somebody's experience or intelligence. And it's so difficult for people to show any kind of vulnerability, especially, I mean, I guess women can
Yeah.
show a little bit of vulnerability in some ways, but in other ways, there's even more pressure to show how
How strong we are.
yeah.
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 I belong in this business. I'll make myself tough. I don't like I don't know.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, no, it's asking for people to be vulnerable with you. It's tricky. It's tricky stuff. But like you
Yeah.
said, I mean, not only presenting yourself as an authority, but just, as they say, walk the walk, you just
Yeah.
have to live your life authentically and let people see you, let people see, wow, that I keep coming back to chamomile and digestion, but whatever, like, it's a good talking point,
It's yeah,
but
it's a good one.
so it's like, you know, that lady with the chamomile and the digestion stuff, whatever, it's a little weird, but like, wow, look at how like, I don't know, happy she seems and like
Or
just
like,
kind
"Oh,
of
she
like,
can touch her toes. I wanna
wow,
be able to touch my toes."
man. Wow. I literally like I just that's another one. If I could also share another thing, it's just, the importance not of just moving your body, but like stretching when this is the kind of work that you do. It is so important. Like I've been practicing yoga for 8 or 9 years now, 8 years, I think. And I do this regularly every week. But especially now that I do this kind of work, if it's been like a week since I've been, or like 5 days or whatever, and I go into a class and I'm all stiff and sore and then I get moving, but then I'm just like, there are people who never do this. Like I, I cannot imagine what that must feel like in your body. And quite frankly, I don't think you do either because you've probably never done this. Like they don't even know like how good this could feel in their bodies. I feel kind of like, like a well-oiled machine when I come out of one of those classes, and like
Yeah.
that is such a crucial thing for this type of work. Like when you're dealing with heavy equipment, machinery, lifting heavy things, you name it, whatever, like your joints, that's going to be like one of the first things to start giving you issues. Like you really have to love them and take care of them. And, like in Ayurveda with the practice of like Abhyanga, um, that's when I really like to start getting back into, especially this time of year, but especially with what I do, after a shower, just gets like your oil, just really rubbing it into those joints. Like it feels so nice. It's so lovely. And it's such a beautiful act of self-care too. And so it's like, it's just these little bite-sized things. And so, yeah, that's another thing for people to remember. It's like, especially when you start learning about any kind of holistic anything, right? Like, I know for me and probably for you and a lot of other people, we start learning in this and we're just like, our minds are just blown wide open. We're like, wow, this is so amazing. I want to do all the things, but you cannot do all the things. You simply cannot. Like, you can take like one or two of these things and try and implement that. In fact, when I first started learning about Ayurveda, I took several sessions with Rachel and she gave me like a whole list. She was like, but this is a lot of things. I literally want you to pick two, just two. That's it. But you've got a
Yeah.
whole bunch of things you can choose from and just start there and see how it feels and like see how easy that is or is not to incorporate into your daily life and then just like go from there. Kind of rambling now, but
Well, I like that approach. I've never done that, just give a client a whole list and just say, "Pick 2." I think,
a good
like,
one.
the
It good.
visual list is good.
Well, and it also I don't know, it also kinda gives you more of that feeling of, like, autonomy and, like, you are choosing what you want to do for yourself, right? Like, you're given a bunch of options, but you still have, like, the authority to decide, like, "This is what I wanna do for me." I'm not gonna have somebody tell me,
Yes.
like, "This is what's best for you."
That's really good for people in the trades because you wanna feel like you have this choice, and because those are the clients that are difficult is you have, like, the rebels, right? That are like, "I'm gonna do it my way." And it's like, at least if you have a list to choose from, you can pick the thing that you're least likely to rebel, or I don't know.
Yeah, well, and in that sense too, like it leaves one with more of a sense of empowerment, but also like a bit of a sense of collaboration, right? Like I don't think we ever want to come to the table and tell people like this is what you need to do to be a healthier person. Like let's talk together, let's work together. Like this needs to be like a mutual understanding and idea of like how to help bring you to better health. Like what do you think that looks like for you? I don't know you. I'm not in your body. Like,
Yeah.
what is most pertinent for you right now? Like, share that with me. Let's figure something out together. Yeah.
That's why I also tend to work with groups. Even if somebody wants to work one-on-one, I'm like, "We can do a few sessions one-on-one, but you need to get in the group," because it goes from, "Oh, hey, pay me to tell you why aren't you going to bed at 10 p.m. when you agreed to doing that," to instead, you've got the whole group. Everyone has, different background, different lifestyles, different setbacks, challenges, successes, and you kind of get to be, like, in the sauerkraut, right? And you get to become part of it.
Yes.
So it's like once you're part of, and that's
Part of
that's
the
a thing too.
culture, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, Really, what it is like construction, welding, trades, they're all a culture, and
Mm,
wellness is its own culture, and I feel like I'm trying to make this weird, like, kimchi sauerkraut where I'm, like, putting it all
love it.
together, and it's not limited just to people in the trades, like, people are busy and overcommitted, and you kind of need a
Certainly.
landing place to process the setbacks. You really need, like, a vision of what you want your life to look like.
Yes. Let's
Um,
make a vision board. Yeah, let's talk about
yeah, and even as a blue collar worker or project manager, whatever, like, you need to have the dream vision of yourself as, like, the dream project manager, like, what is my routine like in the dream scenario? What is my health like? And it's like, okay, we can take a look at that versus where you are
yeah.
now and just start bridging the gap slowly. It doesn't have to be
Truly.
overnight.
Yeah, I mean, just kinda, like, projecting that into the future, kind of forecasting, like, what is the highest version of myself? That can be, like, in a more metaphorical sense, it can be in a more literal sense. Yeah, like, if you wanna be, like, the boss, like, if you wanna be the PM, the project manager, whatever, like, okay, well, what do you need to do to get there? What does that look like
Yeah.
for you? It's probably not killing yourself to get there, right? Like, it's probably, like, taking pretty good care of yourself so that you can do the
Yeah.
things that you need to do.
And not beating yourself up, and I feel like so many people, kind of will feel this low level of discontent across so many places in their life, but they really haven't gotten clear on what where does that discomfort come from? It's because I have this vision of myself that I haven't gotten clear on, and so I don't even know where I'm going. I'm just uncomfortable, and I don't know how to fix it.
Ooh, yeah, like, there's no sense of a lot. You're just kinda wandering. Yeah,
Yeah.
aimlessly wandering, and that's not a good feeling. Yeah,
And
feeling
you're like, "Why does
untethered,
everything
that's
suck?"
and, like, we've all been there, right? I feel like I get there multiple times a year. I'm just, like, out here living my life, which is fine. Like, you can be out there in the ether for a while, but, like, you need to get retethered and come back down to earth and refocus and get clear again on, like, yeah, where you're going. What are you actually trying to do? Yeah, otherwise you're just kinda squandering your time, and I don't think any of us really wanna be doing that.
Speaking of getting clear, I'd like to come back to talking about, like, your day-to-day welding,
Sure,
and
yeah.
what kind of stuff are you guys welding, and, like, what does your daily routine look like?
Part of my daily routine, so first things first, I do like a 3.5 mile walk pretty much every morning. So I'll get up around 6 or so, go do that. I go for about like an hour-long walk. And I recognize this is not accessible for everyone. I'm self-employed, so I can fit it into my schedule in the morning, at least. For some folks, that could be later in the day, whatever. So I get my walk in first and foremost. Another really important thing for me is that I do not drink caffeine regularly at all. And that is going to be a sucky one for a lot of people to hear, but it's really important. It's so important. That has been really transformational in my life. So do the walk, get the decaf, come home. We go out to our shop. We have two dogs that hang out outside with us, so that's pretty wonderful. But being in this line of business, every day is very different. All the jobs that we do are very different. We're essentially like a subcontractor for a very large manufacturer here in the Charlotte area. I mean, they have locations all throughout the Southeast, but we're essentially a subcontractor for them. Meaning, let's say I'll just give a concrete example. Concrete. I'll give I'll give a concrete example here. So, right up the road from us, there's a casino being built in Kings Mountain. You may be familiar with that. So that's like a whole ordeal, right? And you've got like a slew of different trades involved in that. And this particular company, they may be working on the structural steel that's in that building, so the beams and whatever have you. But then there's all kind of railings that are going to go in this building. Now, are we getting any work for this? I don't know. This is in the future. That's not going to be done till next year. It's just the first thing that popped into mind. Just as an example, we kind of come in like at the very last minute as a subcontractor where the trades come in, the concrete guys come in, and once that concrete starts to dry, they're like, "Well, we need some handrails, like, ASAP, it's gotta go in so we can just get these in." Big companies, it's kinda hard to, like, squeeze those last minute jobs in there, but when you've got 2 people, it's like, "Yeah, we can knock it out in, like, a week or 2. We'll have it done." So that's kind of, type of scheduling that we operate under. It can be pretty quick, it can be pretty intense, it's pretty, like, hot under the gun, like, gotta get it done. So there's a lot of pressure just to meet these deadlines from us mainly, right? Like my husband sits down and kind of looks at everything. He's the brains behind all of it. He's just really incredible at what he does. I mean, I think I'm pretty cool with the stuff that I can do, but he's just like out of this world. He's running this whole operation. It's really amazing. But so then we'll get the plans together, the drawings, and we'll spend however much time we need to get these things done. But we do it all from A to Z. We pick up a material from a supplier down the road from us, or he will go do that. He hauls that back to the house. So then we've got these long sticks of pipe. So we're not just welders. Like I feel like a lot of times when we talk about welders, that's kind of like, you might come through and you're just kind of welding whatever is there. Being a fabricator is a bit different in that, like, you have to be able to look at the whole thing. You have to be able to read these drawings. You have to be able to understand these blueprints. You have to be able to conceptualize what's happening here. You have to be able to cut that material properly. You have to lay it all out yourself. I am not a math person, but I have had to become a math person because just the sheer geometry behind all of it is just like I hated it at first. I was like, "Boo, I hate this," and now I'm like, fractions in my head. I'm like, "Who is this person? I never knew she could do this," but it's pretty cool. So there's a lot going on, a lot of steps, a lot of processes to complete a job all the way from start to finish. But yeah, I think probably my favorite part of what I do is when I actually start building a rail. And that's where the welding comes in. We do MIG welding. We don't do stick or TIG or anything like that, just MIG, which for those listening, that is kind of like the one with a gun. You just pull a trigger, you got some gas back there and just um, nothing too crazy. We work with steel. We don't work with aluminum or anything like that. So we're just kind of specifically with like the industrial side of things. We don't do like, residential or ornamental rails or anything like that. Some jobs we've done that are kind of cool to talk about are like we've done quite a few for like the Charlotte Douglas Airport. Let's see. Davidson College, they built a new football stadium a year or 2 ago, and we did a ton of rails for that football stadium. We've done some for a few Amazon warehouses. We've done a Google research facility. We've done so just big name stuff, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. And so, I mean, you would say you're more in fabrication than welding.
Yes, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, like
Wow.
I'm not in a booth doing that like 8 hours a day. It's all over the place what we're doing all day long. Yeah. That's just a small portion of it. Yeah. Yeah. But you gotta take care of yourself in that regard too. Like there are a lot of quite frankly toxic fumes that are coming from welding, so you really have to be mindful of that. We both have like filters that we use, but in that regard, there's a tea blend that I should be drinking a lot more often than I am, but it's really helpful for things like this. I don't know if you're familiar with mullein or not. Okay. So that's a really great one in this line of work. It's real easy. You just do mostly mullein. We'll do like a little bit of licorice and a little bit of fennel in there too to help kind of moisten things up. But excuse me. That's a really great one for just kind of bringing moisture like back into the lungs because you're breathing in like all kinds of dust and whatever have you out there. So we just got to make sure we're taking care of ourselves that way too.
Such an easy thing to just
It
add
is.
into your day is
It is.
just, have it next to the stove and just have it pre-mixed and just put a little bit into a mug with hot water after work.
For sure, for sure. Do we always do that? No. But do we try to do
Right.
these things? Yes. Yeah,
Uh,
I think one of my
yeah.
favorite sayings I've heard, especially about stuff like this is, you can't let perfect be the enemy of good. So just
Yes.
do what you
Yeah.
can. Do what you can. It doesn't have to be the best.
Right. Like, so many people have this attitude of like, it's all or nothing. I'm either going to have no sugar today, or as soon as I break, I'm going to eat all the sugar or whatever it is.
Yep. Yep. That's a big one. That's a
It
big
doesn't
one.
have to be that way.
No.
Can you talk more about not consuming any caffeine regularly?
Yeah, I'd love to. Caffeine is just like one of those fickle things, right? Where, like, for some people, it may not affect them that much. For me, I was drinking it daily for, well over a decade, as many people have. And I don't know, I started to realize, and especially when I started working one on one with an herbalist myself, I've kind of got like my elder herbalist that I work with. Every herbalist needs an herbalist, like every therapist needs their own
Yeah,
therapist too, right? uh,
absolutely.
Anyways, they pointed out to me, they're like, "Ma'am, you're dealing with quite a bit of anxiety. It might be helpful." I'm like, I know, but that sounds really difficult." But so I started on this journey a little over a year ago, and I thought, well, this won't be too difficult. I'll just kind of start tapering back and see how it goes. Wrong. It took me a very long time to taper back from this. And I don't think most people are honestly in tune with just how addictive caffeine is. Everybody just thinks, oh, I just have a cup of coffee. It's not a big deal. When I started scaling back on this, I literally had to scale it back like half a tablespoon at a time, which sounds so ridiculous. And I wasn't even drinking like that many cups of coffee. I could just feel like that big of a difference in my body if I went from like, 4 tablespoons of regular coffee to like 3 and 1 of decaf. That was a big jump for me. So I really had to take it in like baby steps. It wasn't like, flip a switch and you're on the decaf train. So that took me about a solid year to get all the way down to decaf. And so that's what I do every day now. But the beauty of that is, like, listen, that doesn't mean that caffeine is totally off limits. It's just if you are caffeine naive, caffeine can be a really great tool to work with. Like, it'll actually do the job that you need for it to do if you aren't using it on a regular basis. And, I think a lot of people are afraid, like, oh, I won't have like just kinda the juice, like the get up and go to, like, move about my day, but really, like, what your own body can provide you with is actually so much better than needing caffeine. Like, I was so exhausted all the time, and I had no idea. And now it's like, get up, hydrate your body, go for a walk, move your body. You will be amazed at just like how good your energy levels are. And so, yeah, like right now, we're in the middle of a very big job. It's been going on for like over a month now. The material is really heavy, which can make it pretty exhausting, just like moving all that stuff around. And so, like the other day, I had a monster energy drink, whatever, it's really not a big deal if you do things in moderation, right? So, like, I had that and I felt like $1,000,000. I was like, just slinging this stuff around, getting it done, getting my stuff knocked out. But I keep that to just like an every once in a while kind of thing.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's pretty fantastic. Yeah.
I think on Joyful Belly's website, their article about coffee is, it's basically like a metabolic credit card is the way they put it, and, like,
Yes.
at at the beginning, you get, like, a 10 out of 10 return on investment, but it's like
Mm,
if you're doing it every day, which, I mean, I drink a decent amount of coffee, and I don't really I don't know, maybe I should experiment more with it because I usually don't think I can notice a big difference on the days that I don't have caffeine, but maybe
mm.
I have a lot of kaffa, so maybe I don't know, but for if I drink it and then I definitely don't eat anything at lunch and if I'm kind of, like, running on fumes and then I add caffeine to that, then I really notice it, but maybe I
Yeah.
should experiment with it a little bit more.
Definitely. It's definitely something worth trying. And like how we were talking earlier about like make a list for people, pick 1 or 2 things that no one will ever make that the one that they pick first. And like that's okay. That's okay. Just kind of gently talking about it and gently suggesting it. Like even I'd been doing herbalism for years and I still was like, no, not the coffee. But like but there's decaf and it is delicious, and, I know there's a whole, like, gang of people who are like, "Death before decaf," but, like, y'all, you will feel so much better, you really will, like and just, like, the way your sleep improves when you're not having caffeine on a regular basis, just so many things.
And there's a
Yeah,
lot of great herbal substitutes for coffee out there. There's a lot of
absolutely,
different options, which I didn't
absolutely.
know. before I got into all this.
Right. We're just sold on, like, coffee, that's it, that's all we've got, but, like, there's nothing better than, like, if you need kinda like a midday pick me up, like, a cup of, like, peppermint tea, and some people are gonna be like, "That is not gonna that is
That's
not
not
gonna cut it."
cool, Katie.
Hey, what are you talking about? But it's so uplifting. It's got all these, like, volatile oils that really just kinda, like, whoa, like, wake you up and give you that kinda, like, head rush that you need. It's what do we call it? Like a vasodilator, like, literally helps
Yeah.
bring more blood to the brain. Like, yeah, yeah, really good stuff there.
I have a question.
Yes, I might have an
Oh,
answer.
yeah. Well, and, like, um, I'm trying to get back into my yoga practice, but I mean, I feel like generally I'm pretty body aware anyway. Like, I'll
Mhm.
just I stretch in the grocery store and stuff like that. Still pretty part of my life, but sometimes I'll have this moment where, like, I had it this yesterday. I reached down for something and I felt like, I think I my psoas and, like, a couple of other things, and I was like, "Ooh, I need to just stay here in this
Mm.
in this place and release whatever this is." And it's not just the muscle releasing, it's the emotion that comes with it. Do you ever have that experience where you're like, "Oh, I'm feeling a certain way, and it's because my muscle is really tight."
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think anyone who has practiced yoga with some regularity is familiar with the phenomenon of you get through a class, you get to the end of class, and you're in some deep hip stretches, and suddenly you're sobbing on your mat, and you're like, "Why is this happening?" And but it's such a beautiful, and that probably sounds absolutely insane to anyone who's listening who's never done, like, "Ma'am, why would it, like, do you need help?" Like, no, it's just, we store all these emotions in our bodies, and it's such a powerful somatic release to, like, have an experience like that. I mentioned earlier in at the very beginning of this that my brother passed 4 years ago, and I did so much of my processing on the mat. And luckily, some of my best and closest friends, Rachel Harper and Emma McGee, are teachers of mine. And so I'd go to the studio and, get through a class and, I'd be powering through it, just trying to get through it and get to the end and then just literally falling apart. And like, but that's the beauty of yoga, right? Like you literally have this whole community as well. Like everyone knew what I was going through. So there was no need to hold back. And it was a really beautiful thing for me. But yeah, even outside of the hips, I think the hips are kind of like arguably the most like that's where your sad feelings are. I don't know why it just is. So yeah, where do other emotions lie in the body? I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure we could argue that anger is hanging out around like the liver in that area. So and I guess if you think about it, when you go to a class and you do like a lot of heart openers, you're kind of stretching that front part of the body open. You feel a lot better.
I
No more
got
angry feelings.
I got a massage a few years ago, and she was working around my chest, and I just started crying, and I was like, "I don't even know what I'm crying about."
And she was probably like, I see it all the time. It's fine.
Yeah, she was like, "This is a good thing, this is fine."
I love that. That's so good.
Well, and I'm trying to think, like, even in the morning, like, on construction sites, usually you'll do stretch and flex, and it's just so basic, and so when I go and visit sites, I'll do a little bit of yoga, and people get really excited for it, like, I'll come back to a site after months of not being there, and they'll be like, "Hey, can you lead stretch and flex again? We love
It's
it when
the
you."
yoga lady.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, what's cool is I just really give people space to explore their body. I'm like, "This is the general movement you're gonna do, like, feel into it. What feels good to you? It doesn't have to look exactly like what I'm offering." And
Yes.
that's so different from even just leading a stretch and flex where it usually is like, "Okay, we're gonna do 5 squats. We're gonna do washing machine, left leg over right leg,"
Yeah, yeah,
because it's and I think that that's why a lot of people are hesitant about yoga too, is because they see people doing, the crazy stuff on Instagram or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I think that some people don't come back to yoga because their first experience is like, I'm trying to push my body into something it's not ready for, when
Oh my
really
gosh. Yeah.
it's about just exploring what's going on in here? What's going on in my body?
Right. That's another thing that has been like such a beautiful journey over the years. First of all, if there's anybody out there listening who has never come to a yoga class because you are afraid of the very bendy people and like you're just afraid that you won't be able to keep up, first of all, kind of like yoga 101 is keep your eyes on your own mat. Like literally nobody is looking at other people. It's such an internal job that we're doing there that like I don't know. I can't recall, like, looking at other people. It's like you're just focused on yourself. It's a really beautiful thing. But just kind of the progression over, like, the last 8 years in my own practice, and I think pretty much all of us go through this as well. You get into it, especially if you're like me, I'm a very hypermobile individual, so I got started and I was like, "Hey, I'm good at this yoga thing. I can bend and do all kinds of crazy things." So it was a bit of an ego trip for me in the beginning, which is fine because really I had no physical activity in my life. So it was a doorway for me to get into things. And it was like, okay, I'm going to practice hard. I'm going to do all the power vinyasas. I'm going to reach for every insane posture that I can and just push my body, push, push, push. And now that I've been doing that for years, now I'm just like, no, no, thank you. Like I am here to like regulate myself. Can we like slow things down? I do not need to be that Instagram girl. I want to hang out in child's pose. I want to, how about a good pigeon for 5 minutes? That
Oh,
sounds
that's my
fantastic.
favorite.
God, it's so good, isn't it? So yeah, just watching that evolution of the self and like getting out of the ego and down into the body. And when it starts to become like that internal job, like we were saying earlier, that's where the real magic is. I really love going into a practice and setting an intention, for like grounding or whatever, and like doing my best to do the practice with my eyes closed for as much as I can. That
Mhm.
is the best. That is the best stuff. Because you're
Oh, I
just
haven't done that in a
all
long
you can,
time.
isn't it so good? Because all you're feeling is yourself. You can't see anything. It's just like, let me just be in here. Let me just be with me for a while. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the real medicine. Yeah.
Well, that's a really nice way of putting it. That's gonna come out in some magic clip for the podcast clips.
I think that's really wonderful that you're able to like come into these job sites and help guide people through some like stretches and some movement. Yeah, I think that's something that I don't know, maybe a lot of people don't feel like is accessible to them. I feel like that's something you hear a lot when you go into yoga studios. People say, "Well, I don't really want to practice yoga because I'm no good at yoga." And it's like there is no such thing. You come as you are and do what you can. Like, we'll meet you where you're at. That's all any of this is about. You don't have to be good at anything. There's no such thing. It's not a competition. It's just finding some more ease in our own bodies. Yeah.
Something I've noticed from inviting loved ones to a yoga class or even just sitting down and having a deep, conversation with somebody, like, I like to ask people a lot of questions. I keep thinking about I went to this retreat recently and there we were doing like trail work. So we were doing a task, but we were given a question to contemplate with each other while we were working. And afterwards we all came back together and talked about it. What was coming up for a lot of people is they were like, I was able to get to the heart of an issue, or this person was able to ask me questions that helped me uncover something about this thing that I've been processing or thinking about. And I haven't been able to do that because usually if I talk with someone about it, we have this intense eye contact and we're sitting across from each other. But because we were working together and we were doing something, I was able to lean into the task and talk more about this thing. So instead of like starting to cry or starting to feel really vulnerable, I could just lean into the task and I could talk about the thing. And what I realized is like in Ayurveda, or just in herbalism in general, whatever the carrier of the medicine is, you pick a carrier. You pick, is it alcohol? Am I making a tincture? Am I making a salve with tallow or something like that? Am I putting this in aloe juice? Am I targeting the blood? Am I targeting bone? Am
Yes.
I targeting plasma? And I realized that like the task is the carrier of the medicine.
It's the medium. That is
Yeah.
beautiful. I love that.
And so
Wait a
like
second.
yeah,
Let me just digest that for a moment because that is really good stuff. Wow. Ooh, I'm gonna
that's
write that
part of
down.
that's part of what helped me realize that like I can put myself on the internet as a practitioner. I can put myself out there because if I'm not sitting here having a conversation with you or doing a task and being able to ask you questions, I can talk with you through video, and that's my carrier for right now. But what I've realized with loved ones, inviting them to my yoga class or just having a conversation with them, most people don't have someone asking them questions or giving them cues to explore their body.
Mm,
'Cause it's kind of the same thing. It's just, are you accessing it through the body or through the mind, through the emotions?
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so important. I really love that. I this is a little bit of an aside, and this is, like, and no shade to my own family whatsoever. Out of curiosity, do you find that, like, there's a bit of resistance with the people closest to you when you are talking about the things that you know? Like, because I feel like they just kind
100%.
of okay, okay. I felt like that was going to be the case because I feel like that is always the case with, like, people who do the things that we do. It's like, I heard a saying once, and I just feel like it really rings true. It's like, yeah, you can't be a prophet in your hometown. So, like, not not that any of us think of ourselves that way, just like, yeah, I don't know. I think
That's
everyone just
hilarious.
yeah, I think our families just kind of view us as like, "Oh, little Lisa, little Katie, that's so cute. She's playing with herbs and like" but I
Have
have
some
real people issues that you can't fix with tea, ma'am.
Yeah, like nobody else does. No herbalist has, real problems. Well, I have some cool stories about family being receptive. So one of my
My
family
parents love
members
what I do, by the way, and so does my husband. They're all good, but
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, like one of my cousins, she's pretty much my aunt. She's in my group that meets on Sundays, and she's like totally on board. And she's a pharmacist and a naturopath, and she's super cool. And then my dad, it's funny because I started getting into like Buddhism and like just contemplation probably getting close to like 15 years ago. And it's cool because my dad has become the same way, just in a different way. So he'll come up to me and he'll be like, I saw this video and it was talking about doing this thing. Why haven't I ever heard of this before? I was like, I've been talking to you about this thing for years. But
I've
I'm just
literally told you about this.
and now he's getting really into like I think like Tai Chi. He does like all these exercise. So he has like a 20-minute routine in the mornings and he
That's
walks for like
great.
an hour a day. Like he's really doing a lot of that stuff now. But most of the resistance in my family or just from loved ones is people where they're like, oh, you're about to poke a little bit too close to like a really sensitive area. If I go to that yoga class with you, or if I say yes to this thing, then all of a sudden I'm going to have to face something that like I haven't even faced on my own. How can I face it with you?
Yeah, that's a really good
Yeah.
point, for sure. Yeah. I love that your dad is doing that. That sounds
It's
really
super cool.
fantastic. Is my folks have kind of been on their own journey as well, and like it's been interesting over the years. I won't say that they're like not receptive to what I talk about because that's not true. It's just, it's just a little different when it's your own family. But I feel like the discussion that we have as a family unit a lot, especially my dad is really intrigued by this. He's always like, talk to me about inflammation. I'm like, I could talk to you for a week straight about inflammation. Like, what do you want to know? Because like I could say so many things. And the thing that I feel like I've been talking to a lot of people about for the last year or so now because it has been such a game changer in my life. Sorry, I'm kind of like going down a little different avenue
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
So if
yeah.
we need to get back on track, we can. But this is just a little aside because it's a big deal in my life. But like I cut out gluten and dairy like a year ago. And I know that sounds very like, I don't know, new age. She can't do the gluten and won't touch the dairy, but it's so real. It's For real. And that's not for everybody, but, like, I have an autoimmune condition. I've had it since I was 14. I deal with psoriasis and, especially, like, people who have autoimmune things, I feel like we are really susceptible to kinda wearing the label as, like, a badge of honor, or I don't know, just taking it on as, like, part of your identity and being like, "I have this thing. I have this very serious thing." And that's how I was for years. And doctors kind of treat it that way too. They're like, "Oh, well, you have this thing and that really sucks. Here are some medications that you can try. We're not going to offer you any advice for things that you could be changing with your life. You have the thing. You have the thing and you are stuck with the thing. Sucks to be you." And so that's kind of like what I dealt with for like most of my life. And then I started getting into herbalism and I heard about gluten and dairy and I was like, say it ain't so, because I love bread and cheese. And then last year, like my herbalists, they were like, "I hear you saying that you know that this could be a factor. What is holding you back from doing this?" And I was like, "I'm scared." Like, and that's such a silly thing to say, but it's true. It's like, this is a huge part of my life. I love going out to get Mexican food and getting queso. Like, I don't want to give that up. Like, this is really tough. Um, Not the queso, man. Like, chimichangas, come on. But they were so good. They were like, "Okay, well, let's like spitball this and talk about like what are some ways that we can set you up to be successful in this area?" Because like I cooked some, but I wasn't cooking a whole lot back then. And I think that was part of my hesitancy too. I was just like, this is kind of like uncharted territory for me. But they sent me like all these links and information with like great recipes, really accessible stuff. And I was just like, we were talking about being like an all or nothing kind of person. That is me. Like when I quit drinking alcohol, I had people are like, "Oh, you could just have like one." I'm like, "No, I have to be like none, because give me an inch, I will take a mile, like with anything." So I really have to be like super on the none side of things. So I was like, "Fine, I'm going to jump in and start doing this." And it was truly just like miraculous, like what my body started going through and like the months after that. I think the biggest thing that, like, a lot of people saw is, like, I had a pretty, like, dramatic weight loss after that. I wasn't trying to, it just happened because I was eating clean. I didn't change anything else with my exercise, I was just cooking for myself. That's it, and so, yeah, since I left my desk job at Martin to today, I think that's a difference of, like, 40 pounds with just literal, like, lifestyle changes and nothing dramatic. But the bigger thing, the more important thing is, like, my autoimmune stuff is so much more manageable now. I am still, I love sugar. I love some treats. I like to have a little treat every now and then. I just baked myself some or for me and my husband made some like snickerdoodle cookies last night because gluten and dairy free, of course. But yeah, whatever, everything in moderation, right? But like
Yeah.
it's just wild, like watching what that has done for me. I When I first started talking with my herbalist, they were like, "Well, what are the things that you kind of want to conquer?" I was like, "Okay, I have terrible allergies. I have psoriasis. My PMS is out of control. Uh, and my joints hurt." And they were like, "Okay, great. So these are all actually the same thing." And I was like, "Come again? Like, how,
Yeah.
what do you mean?" And so we just started talking through all of this. And they were like, "Really, like at the end of the day, all of this leads back to inflammation." I was just like, "Wow, this is so amazing." Like, I
Yeah.
kind of knew that on some level, but I think everyone has the mentality of like, they are the exception to the rule. Right?
Mhm.
Like this might work for other people, but it's not gonna work for me. We're all cut from the same cloth. It's gonna work for you. Like,
Right.
so,
Yes.
um, yeah. And so just like that, like this has been my first full like year off of gluten and dairy. Allergies are a thing of the past. It was really amazing. Like I really watched a lot of people struggle this year. And like we were talking about earlier, you don't wanna just, like, jump in and start giving advice, and so I would just listen to people. I'm like, "Oh, that's really hard. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm not," but I wasn't like, "Just cut out the gluten and dairy from your life and take some milk thistle and you'll be all better." Like,
Right.
is it true? Yes, but, like, I'm not gonna say that because you'll wanna slap me across the face while you're, like, sneezing and watery-eyed and just, feeling like crap.
I try to, like, sneak in and be like, "What kind of solution are you looking for? Are you looking to make any changes?" Like, just kinda see what kind of
Mm,
conversation they wanna have. Are you here to complain, or are you here to, like, mask the symptoms and not change anything? And a lot of people, like, that's what they wanna do. They wanna complain or the and I'm not even saying that in a negative way, like, sometimes people want to just vent and talk
yeah.
about it,
No, that's real. Yeah.
or
I
do you
yeah.
wanna know what the root cause is and figure it out
Yeah,
and let this
yeah, and
go?
especially in your setting when you've got, like, actual clients for sure, but, when we're just talking about, like, I'm hanging out with some people or whatever, I don't wanna kinda, like, interject myself like that, but yeah, the listening thing, that's very real, and you're right, like, so many people just wanna be heard. So, like, first of all, let's all get a therapist, we all need a therapist, but outside of that, like, we all need someone who will listen to us. Says the one who has been rambling nonstop this whole conversation. I could stand to fine tune my listening skills a good bit, but we're all trying.
I worked with a therapist for about probably like a year and a half, maybe something like that. And she was awesome and helped me process a lot of I mean, what happened is I was like, wow, I'm having a lot of realizations and I need to talk with somebody about it. And it's not even that I need help. It's just that I need someone to talk to who's unbiased and who like, whether it's stuff that happened with family members or like something that happened at a certain age, it's like I can't talk with people in my life about this because they all have an opinion about it. But
Mm,
if I
right.
just talk with this therapist, they can be like, "Oh, this thing that happened at this age is actually remarkably similar, the same pattern that happened at this age or whatever." And what I found really worked for me though was once I kind of got through the big stuff with a therapist, I started working with a coach, which I found was like I got the same things that I was getting from the therapist, but towards an aim of what I
Okay.
want in my life. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's fantastic. I don't know if I know anybody besides you now who has, like, worked with a coach. So, like, talk to me a little more about that. Like, how did you find that? How did you get into that? And, like, what would you say? Well, obviously, you said it's like therapy with a direction, but, like, what are some other key differences you feel like are happening there?
Well, I mean, number 1, so I did Kate Stillman's yoga health coaching, so she wrote Body Thrive, she's an Ayurvedic practitioner,
Okay.
and I learned about her through the yoga studio, actually, but I did her yoga health coaching in 2019, like, I learned how to be a coach, and then around the same time is when I was starting to go to my therapist, and she actually referred me to my coach now, but it is so helpful having somebody to talk to who, like the problem that I kind of found with therapy is it was so much like, okay, I have this problem, whatever the thing is, and it was kind of just mulling around the problem too long for me. When I started working with a coach, it was like, hey, I was able to process stuff pretty quickly. I'd be like, okay, I understand that I have this pattern or like whatever the thing is. Now I can start to like shift the things in my life and kind of get rid of this pattern or like have it affect me less. And a
Yeah.
coach would help me figure out incremental steps to solving that for me.
Like that.
So that kind of felt like the difference of like, okay, we're just going to really, really look at this thing until, we've beat the dead horse
Mhm.
versus like, okay, you're aware of this now. What do you want as like an outcome of realizing this?
Yeah, I might have to look into that. That sounds really nice. I like being given, like, tangible things to, like, work on. Yeah, like yeah. I don't wanna be, like, stuck in the ether around this. Let's get somewhere. Let's get some traction with it. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
Well, I've got a couple of questions that are really just like if, do you like the field that you're in and would you recommend that the other people pursue it? Something like that.
Okay, yeah. I definitely love what I am doing, for sure. It's challenging. It keeps you on your toes every day. It's it's always something new. It's always something different, which I really love. It's a physically demanding job, which I also love. That may not be for everybody. I think, getting into fabrication, I think that could be like an excellent move for plenty of people, obviously for other reasons why I enjoy it so much. Like, obviously, I have the luxury of working from home. Not everybody gets to do that. And also working with my husband, which is just great. I love that. It's so nice. And it's been really interesting for our relationship, kind of navigating and building that relationship as well. Like, okay, how do we kind of handle like our marriage and also our work relationship? How is that going to blend? How is that going to be separate? Does it need to be separate? Doesn't it, just kind of navigating the waters there together. That's been a really beautiful thing for us. And it's interesting too, because like some occasionally we will have some outside help come in. So, for example, like Mark has a brother who does kind of similar work. And if we're feeling a little overwhelmed, he'll come in and help us. He has an uncle who even sometimes will come in and do a couple of things. But Mark and I were just so in tune with each other. Like he knows me so well. He knows my physical limitations. He knows what I'm comfortable with, what I'm not comfortable with. And so when I'll start to do something with either like his brother or his uncle, and I don't know how to explain it, but they're just like obviously they don't know me like that. And I'm just thinking internally, like, oh, I'm so grateful I do this with my husband. Like I'm so grateful that he just like knows what I can and cannot do and like intuitively
Yeah,
knows how to interact with me that way. I don't know if that really makes any sense, but
it does.
so yeah, I mean, the beauty of this kind of job is like there are plenty of positions out there like this. So if anybody were interested in getting into the fabrication line of work, I mean, there are a million different fabrication jobs out there. So you can definitely find it. You definitely, I mean, you have to be self-motivated and self-driven. You have to be able to be reliable and accountable, and when you make mistakes, own up to them, know how to fix them, and move on. Don't dwell on it. You don't have time to do that. Again, I'm lucky to have my husband because if I make a little boo-boo, he's like, "It's okay. It's all right. I love you. Like, it's good."
Oh, that's so nice.
Not everybody gets that kind of like consolation when they make a mistake at work. I literally get, like, kisses and hugs when I mess up, so that's great. But yeah, it's good. I really love it. I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, we're having a blast. Sometimes it's exhausting. Sometimes it's like, "Wow, I don't think we've left our property in, like, 7 days. We gotta get out of here and do something
Yeah.
different." But, I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's wonderful, especially the self-employment side of things, just kinda making our own schedule. Sometimes it's tough, like, my husband's out there right now working on a job. We'll be working some through this weekend, and that's okay. You just gotta do what you gotta do, but it's good.
We've almost been recording for an hour and a half, but I feel like I could talk with you forever. Maybe you could come back on, like, in a few months or something.
Love to. Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. I think the only other things that I didn't talk about that I'm just gonna throw in
Yeah.
there real quick because I feel like they're just so crucial. Earlier we were kind of talking about like what are the things that I do in like a daily routine to like help my body like through this job and things like that. And I mentioned some non-negotiables are like working with collagen to help with my joints and omega 3s, but some other things that are super, super important, and I could talk for a long time about this one, but I'll try and keep it concise, is adding minerals to your water is so important. It's so important, like just for staying properly hydrated, but also like, I mean, this, people who are in like the holistic realm, we talk a lot about like how just our foods don't cut it anymore for mineral content. Like we know that the soil is depleted. We're just not get and frankly, people aren't eating vegetables the way they should anyway. So even if the mineral content were there, we're just not getting it. And like, why is this so important? Well, like your nerves literally can't communicate with each other if they don't have the mineral content to do so. Like it's mandatory. So, like with all that said, there are so many great brands out there. I personally work with this one called Mega Mag, and we put that in our water like every day. And I feel like that makes a huge difference, especially like on the hydration level, right? Because our water, like our cells require minerals to be hydrated. And when that's lacking in the water department, it's literally going to leach whatever minerals you do have in your body, making you feel dehydrated. So just adding that back in there. So yeah, the trace minerals, Mega Mag, but also like, especially if you're in construction and this kind of work, we're getting out of the summer. It's cooler now. So we're not needing to stay quite as hydrated. But like there are so many like powder electrolyte things out there on the market. Just like take your pick and work with those regularly. It is so crucial. We work outside in the summer in a shop that has no air conditioning. We have like 2 fans that we have out there. And, in the heat of summer, the literal heat of summer, there are times when the heat index is like 108 degrees. It's brutal, but you have to be out there. So, just like knowing how to properly hydrate your body is just so important. Eating seasonally, not overdoing it, like eating light during the daytime so that you're not, gonna get back out there and feel sick to your stomach. Like, I think we probably should have like a part 2 to this conversation, even just the whole like eating side of things. That is such a massive component to all
You
this.
know what? Do you wanna do that? We could release a part 2 in a couple of weeks.
I'd love to.
We can, like, really sit down and think about, like, what are the kind of seeds that came from this conversation, and then have a
Yeah.
part 2 and we could talk about, like, the fall season and stuff. That would be
Yes, I
fun.
love it. I think that sounds great. Yeah, because I really
Yay.
enjoyed this.
Me too. And, yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that I would like to talk with you about that don't really, like, it flow with the conversation just the way we've had it. Yeah, let's schedule that and try to do it within the next few weeks. That'd
Yes,
be so
yes.
helpful.
Yeah, let's do it. I know we said no more commitments, but maybe we can just, like, make this one, right? So
Yeah, like a one podcast episode. Let me think. Well, I'm gonna plug my program since we've talked about coaching so much today.
yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
All right, so I have 2 options for coaching. Number 1 is a community called Blue Collar Wellness. So that's just $9 a month, and you get 3 different recordings each week of me either guiding you through a meditation or a yoga practice. Really, it's just stretching. Everything in Blue Collar Wellness is 15 minutes or less. So you get like movement or meditation. You get kind of an Ayurveda lesson for the week, and then kind of a contemplation practice. So maybe it's a journaling prompt or some kind of exercise. But that is $9 a month. And then we have Built to Thrive, which is more of a hands-on. So you get everything with Blue Collar Wellness, and we meet weekly for live coaching where we do done with you practices. You get access to an entire video library about Ayurveda. Built to Thrive is really about changing your habits, creating a vision of your future self, and starting to unwind kind of these things in our psyche that make us do the things that we do. When you're trying to create new habits, it's really important to understand why and how, you have the habits that you have.
Why are you the way that you are? Yes.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. The group aspect is very effective. It helps people get more results more quickly and more lasting.
Love it.
Um,
That is awesome. I love that. And you said the Built to Thrive, that's $9 a month and you get all of that content?
So Blue Collar Wellness is $9 a month, and you
Blue
get
collar
all
wellness, that's right.
everything is recorded. There's like Q&A sessions weekly, but for most of the live one-on-one options and group coaching, that is going to be Built to Thrive. And that's a higher
Got it.
price point. Right now we're actually doing it for $99 a month, and that is weekly weekly group coaching. So
Yeah.
it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. No, I just mixed up the 2 when I said
Yeah.
that. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. I love that. I love that. And I love this. I love what you're doing. I love having this
Thank
conversation
you.
with you. It's been a while since we have been able to like allocate some time to talk and I forgot just like how effortless the conversation flows. So this has been
Yeah.
really nice.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you for having me. This has been really wonderful and I'm really looking forward to coming back and talking about more. Yeah.
Yeah. So, guys, stay tuned for the part 2, and thank you for tuning into the Built to Thrive podcast. We'll see you next time.